Hello and welcome back to this damn fully idealistic crusade. This video is a book review of the new book entitled The Lucifer Stone, which is by Bob Madison. This book was actually sent to me by Bob for review, so thank you, Bob. This was a blast to read because this novel it's an old-fashioned pulp adventure, pure and simple. That's why I'm not going to go very much into the plot, because the joy of reading this, and it is a joy to read, it is a very engaging and nicely constructed pulp adventure that you won't want to put down. So if you start reading it at work, you're going to overshoot your lunch break for sure. I ran into that. This is a period adventure, but it's of course got many flavors of the various classic pulp adventure characters of both pulp magazines, of pulp novels, of course screen adaptations. So you're going to recognize a lot of classic elements you know and love, but it's never done in an overbearing way to detract from the actual story that's being told. So while the book is peppered with references to classic 1930s pulp materials, and of course before, because our lead character is in a lot of ways very nerdy, what we would consider nerdy today, and obsessed with pulp characters as we are today, even, or at least those of us who are Pulp Fiction fans. The references are never detracting from the story material itself. And also, interestingly, every time there's a specific reference in the text where a character is reminded of something, or something that was popular at the time or was well known in pop culture, so it's a reference in the dialogue. Every time those are referenced, there's actually a mark, and you get a little footnote explaining that reference if you're not up on that particular character or item from 30s pop culture. So this book is easily accessible to someone today who has never read a pulp magazine, or who has no knowledge about music of the 1930s or various historical figures and things. And that's not something you see in a lot of stories being written that are modern novels trying to be classic pulp adventures. So that was a really nice touch to have that in there. Of course, me being me, I didn't necessarily need those, but it was a nice thing to see. So don't be put off by this particular book if you're not familiar with a lot of classic 1930s pulp fiction. So to talk about this plot in the briefest setup, I'm basically going to talk like the blurb on the back of the book. Essentially, this novel, The Lucifer Stone, centers around our hero, Dr. Peter Armstrong, who works in the Princeton astronomy division, essentially, and actually opens at an observatory, but it deals with a bunch of mysterious rocks that have appeared and to have crashed somewhere in the United States, and as they all seem to have extraordinarily destructive properties to them, and so they essentially become the subject of a sort of treasure hunt and a race to obtain these rocks, whose origin is very much unknown, and it is greatly suspected that they are perhaps a new type of weapon that was developed by another country and just happened to crash land in the United States. This being a 1930s adventure, the actual suspect is left a little vague, but you can sort of determine yourself where you think these might have originated from. But essentially, our hero is a professor, so there are definite Indiana Jones vibes. However, he is not a man of action. He is very much obsessed with pulp fiction and literature, and is a bookworm and devoted to reading Edgar Rice Burroughs and every issue of Amazing Stories and every pulp magazine, and of course a devoted fan of The Shadow, Doc Savage, The Spider, all the great 30s pulp characters. So you very much have the sense also of this being not only having a dash of Indiana Jones, there is a little bit of fun, pulpy goriness when the secret of the stones is first revealed early on, to set the gravitas of how dangerous these items are. So there is a dash of Amazing Stories in feeling, or classic pulp magazines that could get gory from the science fiction and horror stories of the day. But there's also a nice feeling and energy of a classic classic Hitchcockian wrong men thriller like The 39 Steps, because we have our hero who's basically out of his element and having to keep his head above water figuratively throughout the story. And he is quickly almost sort of partnered up with a woman agent from an unnamed sort of agency who is very extraordinarily capable in all kinds of ways, and is sort of bemused by the fact that she's saddled with this guy who is, not a tough guy, although he kind of tries to posture that way at times in trying to at least have some sort of bravado on display, which you actually get in the cover when you look at the cover of this book and you see the weapons they're carrying. She always sticks to a long-barreled revolver. That is her weapon of choice, and he, not having a weapon in his house, grabs the only thing at hand, which of course is an old femur bone on display that was a fossilized bone that was just sitting on the shelf. So he has it as a club. That's his weapon, because he's never used a weapon in his life. So that, of course, always adds to the fun of these stories. You always need the mismatched sort of pair, so there is some wonderful banter between these characters throughout, and again, plenty of 1930s references peppered through. The cast of villains is also interesting, and I don't want to spoil any of those because particularly the head gangster Stutka is a particular character that seems almost directly out of a Doc Savage story in terms of his background, so I don't want to spoil that or any of the plot really for people, because the whole fun of this book is getting into the adventure and realizing that it has great doses of Hitchcockian energy, has dashes of Indiana Jones, dashes of pulp magazines, has, nice bits that could seem like they could come out of a Shadow or Doc Savage novel. It has definite moments that feel this could easily be a Republic serial. It has a serial energy. It does have some moments that could be considered cliffhangers. So, and it has an actual object that is being sought after, and various forces that are going after the same goal that end in various confrontations. And there are some really wonderful set pieces. So you could actually envision this in your head. I know I did as I read it, as a Republic chapter serial. So it has that wonderful, incredible serial energy to it. It's also a very quick read. It's a little over 200 pages, and the real factor to judge any adventure story by is, are you enjoying it so much that you don't want to put it down? You will not want to put this down. It's a quick read, and it is a blast from start to finish. So I don't want to spoil any of the plot. And the most notable elements, I think, the characterizations are quite excellent, and the whole sense of having a great dose of 30s pop culture, and especially of pulp fiction and pulp characters, and having our hero be a bit nerdish. Other writers might be tempted to obviously make him more Indiana Jones-like. Here, our character is so much of a bookworm to the point that when his room gets ransacked, all he cares about is that his book collection has been damaged, and one of his prized books has been destroyed, and he spends time worrying about how he's ever going to replace it with another copy, and that becomes a running gag for the rest of the book, that he has to keep getting a replacement copy for the Tarzan novel he hasn't finished yet. And as a lifelong bookworm who has worried about his own book collection, that was definitely the part that resonated with me most. So it's a bit more lived in than you'd expect. It's a bit more thought out, and the author's definitely having fun with this and creating this world, and never lets the pace go slack. So that is, of course, the cardinal sin of any adventure. If you let the pace go, you let the story focus go, and you spend too long going on different pathways and things or side plots, you lose the energy of the adventure. You have to maintain that throughout. So there are some nice twists and turns. There are some lovely nods to classic films and other pulp characters of the 30s throughout that if you're a pulp fan or a classic film fan, you're definitely going to notice and sort of chuckle at. So that being peppered throughout the book makes it even more fun. So this is a book I would recommend to anyone. Currently, it's from a new publisher, and they only sell books through Amazon. You can get it as a paperback for about, I think it's going for $16, and the ebook is very inexpensive. It's only, I think, $4.99. So if you're looking for a fun pulp adventure and you're looking for a fun book that doesn't cost a lot of money, and you also want to support an independent publisher, definitely check out this book, The Lucifer Stone by Bob Madison, which is so much fun that I actually want to order a print copy. The review copy Bob sent me, it was the ebook, so I usually don't read ebooks, so I'm a print guy through and through. But this was so much fun and so good that I was sitting there. And again, as I said before, I overstayed on a lunch break at work. So that's, I think, the best indicator of, is this a good adventure or not? Well, I got so wrapped up on it and I didn't want to stop, and I went over on a lunch break. So I think that is the best selling point for this, that it's so good that you don't want to put it down, and it's so fun that you're gonna take longer than your actual lunch break because you just forgot about the time. So if any of this intrigues you or seems to whet your appetite for a fun pulpy adventure, check out The Lucifer Stone. It's very inexpensive. It's a very quick read and a very enjoyable read that I know I'm going to come back to many different times, because I think we're all starving for pulp adventures, whether we know it or not. I think the word pulp itself means so much that it's one of the greatest words in terms of describing aspects of literature that exist. Merely the word makes me get a giant grin on my face. It's the spirit of adventure that we just don't see in our media of today, that is so sorely lacking, that even when we get a glimmer of it, it's a reason to celebrate. And that's why I find myself digging more and more and more into the classic days of pulp fiction and pulp literature, and reading works that I just never had access to before. And this is definitely a wonderful gateway if you've never experienced a pulp adventure or a classic 1930s pulp novel. This would be a wonderful introduction because of all the references peppered throughout, because they have the footnotes. You might see something that tickles your fancy, and then you go look that up, and you finally read a Doc Savage novel, or you read a Shadow novel, or you watch a Republic serial, or you watch one of the Hitchcock 1930s thrillers, or you read one of the Indiana Jones novels. There's a lot of different things you can use this as a branching off point. So thanks to Bob for writing this wonderful book and sending me this review copy. This was an absolute blast, and I really needed it at the time, in terms of I'd been just really needing something new and something very pulpy, and this definitely fit the bill. So this comes with my highest recommendations, and I can't wait to see what else he might come up with, and what else we might see from this publisher. So please do check out The Lucifer Stone if you're interested. You can order it on Amazon as both an ebook and a paperback. And as always, please do keep supporting independent publishers and independent bookstores wherever possible, and keep reading BookTube. Thank you ever so much for watching.